up, everybody? Welcome to the Next Gen Retics podcast. We have the Snow King, Eric Lee, on for episode 8. So excited to get to know him. This is really going to be kind of a breeder highlight, breeder spotlight segment that we're doing today. So excited to really get into kind of the nitty gritty with you, Eric. I know obviously you have a big name in the super dwarf space, the retic space, and you've been, in it for quite some time now. But maybe give people that are just kind of getting first exposed to you here a rundown of who you are, what projects you're currently involved in, what you're known for, and then, some of the things that just 30,000 foot view, what you're looking forward to.
Okay, cool. Hey guys, Eric Lee at SD Snow King. I've been keeping retics total about 20 some years. First retic was back in 91 or 92. Had a big collection all the way up until about '04. Then went graduated college, went active duty, got out of snakes, didn't get back into it until about 2012. Started with mainlands. Then for mainlands about 2013, 14-ish, started doing the locality stuff, found out, SD stuff and kind of got hooked around 2014, 2015, started transitioning everything from mainlands to, SDs. Same time, I ended up picking up a pair of 75% Kalatoa, 12.5% Jamp, double het snows from Ben Rennick. And that pretty much set me on my trajectory now, which is mainly just snow stuff. Started branching out, made some orange glow snows last season, hoping to make some mochino snows this year, then tying into like rainbows and hypos in the future, and some like locality crosses that I plan on mixing into the snow stuff. But that's
That's
pretty much
awesome.
it. So
Yeah, and we've got some good questions for you too, Eric, but you're somebody that is really just kind of stuck in and I feel like nailed the high percent purple super door or snow projects, and I know you're still working on variations of that. But I guess talk a little bit about just the persistence piece and what has kind of kept you on top of the game, because I feel like there's a lot of people that come in, they phase out within 3 to 5 years. I mean, what do you attribute that to, and what's been kind of the fuel for that?
Hey, Spencer, real quick, was that your question or was that from the list I sent you?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not reading off of it.
Oh, okay, yeah, because I'm looking at a question. I'm like, damn, that's the question I got here lined up.
Oh, okay. So yeah,
Yeah.
so it's not just me then.
No, yeah. Daniel Newman, he almost asked the exact same question. He said, "What kept you truly disciplined to keep pushing for your breeding goals, even knowing it would probably be a lifelong journey?" Very similar.
my biggest thing is just I always tell people, I mean, as long as you're not chasing whatever trends or this that, just a passion thing. Because at the end of the day, like Spencer said, most people don't even survive 3 to 5 years, if that. I mean, you just got to be passionate about it and kind of like set your goals and don't get sidetracked, because I think a big issue a lot of people have when they're just getting into it is they don't know what projects they like or don't like, so which is understandable. But then you start buying into one, but then they all of a sudden, hey, there's a deal on this and that, and you buy all these mismatched animals that do nothing for you, which takes away time and effort on your part. So you got to kind of, first couple years just see what you like before you jump head into it. I always tell people get pure females, raise them up, then you can, search around, look at projects, morphs, and kind of go that way. Because like the snow stuff I've been doing since, like I said, about 2015 when I got those animals. The biggest thing that's kept me going is just kind of being a masochist and just, staying the course. It's one of those things where most people won't survive because they get into it for the wrong reasons, thinking they're going to make money or, oh, I'm going to be the next big whoever. But at the end of the day, the big portion of breeding is all the setbacks that we all encounter. And most people never survive their first setback, let alone multiple year after year, where, people spend a lot of money getting into this thinking, hey, in 3 to 5 years, I'm going to make all my money back and profit on top, which, hey, sometimes that works, but a lot of times it doesn't. Or if you have a clutch where all of a sudden you bought a case of bad feeders and it kills your entire clutch, then you're
Yeah.
done. Just because most people will not, it's not palatable for most people to take the kind of hits that people that have survived 20 plus years take, because at the end of the day, it's like if you're doing it for the passion and you don't care if you make money, you just want to do it, you'll probably survive it. But someone that says, I have a 3 to 5 year timeline, I've spent 20 grand, 30 grand, 50 grand, I expect to make X amount of dollars in X amount of time, you'll never survive. Like back in the day, I was working at McDonald's making $4 an hour. I saved up 5 grand for a pair of albino boas from the Barkers. And this was shit 93 or something like that. Raising them
It's
up,
crazy.
5 grand, making $4 an hour. 6 months into it, the female dies on me. Just I come home and I'm just like, I talked to Tracy and she's like, well, we can't. I'm like, I wasn't expecting a refund or anything like another animal. She's like, sometimes boas die. Sometimes, animals die and shit. And that's the cold, hard truth. And that honestly prepped me for all the shit and mistakes I've had to take as retic breeders, that you learn. Like, I mean, if everything went perfect, everyone would be doing it. Everyone would be successful. That's not the case. Even with the
Well,
SD, I had the same thing happen where initially I bought a pair of lavender head Anries, raised the pair up. The female was almost exactly 4 years old, came back from a trip, she's dead. And, I had the necropsy done. The vet's like, there's nothing, it's undetermined. There's no, like, there's no definitive cause on why she died. But that's just one of those things where if you're in it for the money or the fame, you're just not going to laugh because you got to, like, I tell people, as much as we all expect and plan for successes, you got to plan for your failures. Not that you hope for them, but you got to know that's part of the game, and that's you can't have one failure, no matter how bad it is. Just be like, okay, well, I'm done now because I lost this and that. Like, it's gonna happen to all of us eventually for one reason or another.
what was it? What was it? A follow-up question to that. What was it specifically, Eric, about the snow project that like drew you to that? Because I think that's like what was kind of the core reasoning behind focusing so heavily on snow stuff.
Basically, when I originally got into the retics, just like I said, early '90s, there were imports, and mid '90s, the Tigers, Super Tigers, and albinos came out. And obviously, making $4 an hour, you're not really affording much of anything back then. So, like, I got out of everything in '04 before I went active duty. Then, when I came back in 2012, it went from '04, you had imports, Tigers, Super Tigers, albinos. Then, all of a sudden, 2012, I just went on King Snake before the Facebook groups, and I was like, "Holy crap! What is all this?" Like, I had no idea what, because I've been out of it for 8 years. I didn't keep in touch or anything of any kind when I was out. I was 100% out.
Yeah, there
Like,
was a
and when I
lot of
took,
stuff in Retics
yeah,
between 2004 and
and
2000.
2012 was
Yeah, there was a
that
lot.
that
Yeah,
was the heyday of mainland where
yeah,
it was world's first rush. See how big you can make a mainland in 12 months.
yeah,
People are hitting 13, 14, 15 foot animals in a year. But I saw my first snow. I'm like, holy shit, this is really cool. I was like, okay, what is it? Albino Andrew. I'm like, okay, I know what albino was back then. I was familiar with purple, white lavenders and stuff, and the Andrew. I was like, oh, okay. Then I was like, you know what? This would be really cool if I could make this thing like corn snake size. Will it ever get there? No, but like just a way smaller than whatever mainland 15-foot animal you'd get. I'm like, then I started researching the locality stuff and saw people like it was mainly the Indo page
yeah,
because Indo page, like all those guys, they had the pictures of the proven females on clutches that are literally they could pick it up with one hand. You're not picking
It's
up any.
wild.
Yeah, so I'm like, holy crap! I mean, it's legit because back, 2013, 14, everyone was like, SD is just gimmick. You're starving the animals. That's why they're breeding, but they're staying small. But then you look at the Indo guys and they're cranking out clutches and literally they're holding it up with one hand, like, oh, this girl's wrapped around a clutch. I'm like, and those guys feed heavy. They're
yeah,
not like, oh, I'm gonna lightly feed stuff. So I started looking into it, like, okay, this isn't some gimmick. It wasn't some marketing thing. It was just like legit. And I was like, at the time, I had probably 30 some mainland girls. And I got back into it. And I'm like, and back then when I was in Arizona, I had a hookup on rabbits. I was paying, I think, $2 to $5 per rabbit, any size. So I didn't really give a shit
wow,
about, oh, I need to pay, I'm going through 200 pounds of rabbit. Oh, it cost me $70 a month. Like so it didn't matter. But then I started like, Roddy can attest to this. Like having big retakes, like after a while, you're like, one for a pet is cool, but no one wants to
yeah,
manage 20, 30 mainlands. It's like, plus the upkeep and trying to get them bred back then when everyone was like mad rush to get them as big as, you know, as fast as possible. I was like, the SDs filled that niche where, hey, they're still retic like, but in a way smaller package. And even I knew back then when I had my mainland girls, I'm like, 99% of people that get mainlands have no business with the mainland. The first
Yeah.
like 6 months to a year when they're reasonable size and they don't take much and you can keep them in a 4 foot, maybe 6 foot cage, it's cool. But after that, most people dump them. Like I always tell people, all these people that post, initially like, oh, look at my mainland. They'll post and post for the first 1 to 3 months. After that, it fades off. Usually 6 months, you never hear from them again until they get a new pickup and they're like, oh, look at this new hatchling. And like, I didn't want to breed a bunch of animals knowing like they're probably not going to survive the first year because most people that impulse buying, and they're like, oh, look, another one. I'm like, I don't want to breed them just for them to die or live a horrible death. So I kind of basically by I think 2016, 17, 2019 was my last mainland clutch, which was my pied clutch. And I've told people before that pied clutch I did, the female was fucking horrible, but babies were amazing. But right out of the egg, their first meals were all small rats. And I'm like, I don't ever want to do that again because, you know, like imagine a clutch of 20, 30 plus animals where their first meal literally right out of the egg is a small rat.
Yeah, especially
Well,
You know,
right now
well,
with rat
yeah.
prices.
yeah, rat
Uh,
prices are just insane.
insane.
What
Yeah.
was that? What was that story, Eric? I think you told me, and I don't know if you shared this on the last episode. I don't think you did, but what was that one story of you trying to get, was it your pied female out of like a top enclosure or something, and she like wrapped you up and you were like
Oh yeah, it's
freaked
when I
out?
moved. Yeah, I moved out here. Like she's the only one where like my wife wasn't a snake person before we met, and she doesn't mind the snakes. But I had the pied in a vision. I took her out, and she normally never comes out of the cage. I would literally have to fight, and I'd throw my shoulder out a bunch of times, just yanking her out as hard as I possibly can with everything I have just to get her out to clean the cage. So I have both of the glass out of the vision. I bend over and she comes flying out of the cage for whatever reason and wraps it around my entire waist and rears back. And I just turn my head and I'm just like, this is where I die. And I just close my eyes. I'm like, hopefully it's fast. And she just, for whatever reason, decides to go back in the cage. And I was like, holy shit, that's the first time in a really long time where the hairs on the back of my neck was like, hey, Eric, this is how you die today. Because I mean, 18, she's probably like 160 some pounds. And she'd broken tongues before where like she'd be on one side of the cage and, piss or shit, whatever. I clean it. I'd get tongs and with a towel and just kind of, scrubbing one side down. She'd bite the towel, wrap the tongs and snap tongs in half. And I'm just like, this shit's not fun. Rodney has animals where it's like, you got to psych yourself up just to clean the cage. You're like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm gonna put you off. I'm gonna put you off. Then you finally do it, but then you're like, this is miserable. And I've only been wrapped one other time where I had one of my dwarf ones that were like 12 feet. It's on a four stack of 632s. I'm on a step stool, and she handcuffs me and bites. And I'm just standing on this step stool. I'm like, I'm just glad I didn't fall back and all the glass that I had laid out behind me. So
Oh
like
my
I
gosh.
got off the step stool, and I'm just like, I'm handcuffed. I'm bleeding everywhere, and I'm just like, okay, then you wait 45 minutes before they let go because every time you kind of wiggle, they get
Yeah,
tighter
they
and tighter
tight. Just tighten down.
Oh
Clamp
because
my
down.
God.
it was a food bite. So I was like, okay, whatever. Then I undid that, but it's one of those things where most people like, how did you not pull away? I'm like, because I know what happens if you pull away.
Yeah.
And me being on the very top of like a 6 foot step stool, where if I fall back, I'm like, yeah, no, yeah. I just
It's crazy.
the more I worked with the mainland, as much as I love them, I still have my big super sun girl. I'm not getting rid of her, but she's a pet. I have absolutely zero desire to breed her. She's just cool. And it's not like a marketing thing where I say, hey, look at this mainland, buy the smaller version. Because even the small versions, for a lot of people, it's too much snake if they're not used to it, or the
Yeah.
energy of a retake, the intelligence. I mean, ball python, king snake, corn snake, it's a great, very low key, mellow, predictable animal where they don't have a food drive, not like a retic. Even if you have them as hatching, which is great, but like a pure SD, 8 to 10 foot is still a lot of snake for most people if they're not accustomed to a high energy, potentially super fast, very agile snake.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. I mean, I think once again, it's just it's interesting to hear people's stories with mainlands and some of the predicaments that they've gotten in. And I mean, I was just looking at old footage, Eric, from 2020 2022 Retic Fest when we pulled Karma out.
Yeah.
And you were a part of that crew. It was me. I think there was
Yeah.
like three other dudes, Rob, whatever. And she's a pretty chill animal, but she likes to go, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
she likes to move. And so trying to get her out of that facility was just a nightmare. And I just can't imagine. I mean, big respect to anybody that has a bunch of mainlands, but like you really have to love it and understand, the situation that you're in.
Yeah.
Like owning mainlands. Like it's not like, hey, I go to a pet store, I like Retics, and I want to buy, five new pet mainland Retics. It's like it, it's just not feasible. Like there's no way. Like you're a very able-bodied, in shape human being, Eric, and it's like you don't want that trouble. Like I don't want
Yeah,
that
I mean,
trouble.
and the biggest thing too is, don't get me wrong, when I was young and dumb, like I'm sure Rodney probably had the same mentality. I like mean shit. I like being kept on my
Yeah.
toes. It's fun when you're young, and
Adrenaline
you can,
rush.
yeah, you can get injured and recover like in an hour. Whereas when
Yeah.
you're old and you're like, holy shit, I threw my back out. It's gonna take me 6 weeks to recover. Like, no, it's just
It's not
like
worth it.
back in the day. I think it was right before King Snake went online, and I think 96 or 97. Like a lot, they used to have one of their tabs was import. So you could get stuff from Duncan McRae, who owned Herpetofana back then, and you can import straight. Like I used a majority of all my retakes back then were all imports because other than Tiger, Super Tigers, and albinos, and most stuff I couldn't afford. So you could get an import that was like, oh, this was literally caught out of the jungle maybe 72 hours ago. And I had all this crazy shit that was super crazy. They weren't aggressive. They were just flighty because obviously they came from the wild straight into your. And I had stuff where it was like I said, I was in high school at the time. I thought that was funny. Every time I'd get bit and bleed all over the place, my friends were playing Nintendo, scared out of their mind. They wouldn't help me with shit. I get locked up, and we thought it was funny. But as
Right.
you get older, you're like, it's just
That's
not funny anymore. You kind
yeah.
of hurt, and it takes me longer to recover. I mean, so I think I just grew out of that whole ego driven. Like I just want a big snake, regardless of how nice or not nice it is. Where now it's like if people come over, I want them to be able to handle something that's super cool looking, but I don't have to worry like, oh god, is this one going to act up today? I don't know. Here, take this other one. So
Rodney, what were some of the? I'm going to turn it over to you, Rodney. There's a few other really good questions, I think, from Kevin and some other people. Go ahead and
Yeah,
go
let me
through
pull
some of
that up
those.
real quick. Yeah. Oh, I asked that one. Ryan Conkey said, "How do you decide pairings and the order of pairings, and how long and long-term projects?"
for me, the biggest thing is it all honestly depends on what I have that I'm raising up because everything, like for me, the breedings aren't done in a vacuum. Like everything
Yeah.
is like kind of stages. I mean, if you only had like one pair, then obviously, or you only have 4 or 5 animals, it's easy because it like you just need to start it basically, depending on the projects. But for me, like with the snows in particular, like I think for a majority of people, I'd say probably 62.5 is probably the upper limit for a majority of people that have snows right now, give or take.
Mm-hmm.
So like I have the ability to make super high percent stuff, but I don't because everything, like I said, I do it in stages. Why? Because for example, like 60, let's say 62 and a half is the upper threshold right now for people. If I were to turn around and make some 80% stuff, like in the, say I make the 80% stuff this season, then next year I go back and I'm like, oh, let me make these 68 or 75. It's like, why? It's like I kind of shot myself in the foot where it's kind of a progression where you're enjoying the ride and you want to kind of tweak it as you go. But I don't want to go from, hey, let me make my 87.5% snows this year, then be next year be like a couple years, people are gonna be like, oh, I have 75. Then everyone's the first question is like, well, when are you gonna make more 87s and are they gonna be as cheap
Yeah.
as they piece? So same reason, like the gene stacking. Like I know Rodney can attest to this on the mainland side. All the people that back in the day, they could have gene stacked everything, but they purposely didn't because they're basically, I don't want to say they're milking it for all it's worth, but basically it's kind of in that, you know, vein of thought where you do it in stages because yeah, you can do it all up front, but then what do you have to work for after that? If you're doing everything now, then you're like, hey, I made an 87.5% calico with snow. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll eventually make fire, but how long is that going to be? Whereas, hey, let me bang out some 68, some 75, or 78, so forth. But in terms of the breeding, like most of my breedings, the way I have it geared now, because my the depth of my Snell stuff is big enough where, okay, I have this girl or this boy that is 2.5 years old. What should I breed now? Where when that male or that female comes online and it's perfect and everything just kind of, I don't want to say assembly line, but kind of that mentality where everything is perfectly as best as I can time it. Where I produce this new, clutch this season that this male that I don't need to slam him with food to get him ready. He has 2.5 years, which is plenty time. If he just,
Yeah.
a slow, moderate growth rate where I'm not like, oh my god, I got to feed him every 4 days because he has to breed at 8 months old. My
Yeah.
breeding's kind of get forward what I'm raising up, their age, and hey, this season, if I breed this, like for example, my Mochino snows this year that I'm shooting for 50%, which isn't super high, but I have 2.5 year old Mochino Pos head Henry stuff that I'm raising up that are 2.5 years old now.
Mhm.
So my mind, if I get my Mochino snows or even Mochino head Henrys for that male, it gives me
Yeah.
about 18 months, maybe 2 years where I don't need to worry about him because in 2 years, 2.5 years, 100% he'll be ready to breed. And that girl that right now is currently 2.5 years old, I don't need to push her because I still got to eat up 2 years with both that male being of age and that male that's going to be a hatchling. So most of my breedings go that way where I could try to plan it out. And right now, my big push is obviously I have a bunch of purple snow stuff, but I want to branch out Mochino snows and hopefully in 2.5 years, about when that Mochino I have, those Mochino girls I have now, I can hit Mocha snows, then branch
Mhm.
out and tease them out. Same thing, orange glow snows right now. I have my male orange glow head Henry where like down the road I raise him up and try to do the same thing, go back and forth with the purples to increase percentages on the Mochino side, Mocha side, orange glow snow side. But eventually I want to tease that out, Indo caramel snows and so on.
Yeah, and
But
that's the other thing though. Like, you kind of, you need to start. Well, you no, you have started. Working in, okay, so I got the snow stuff, but now I got to incorporate this gene. Now I got to
yeah.
incorporate this gene. Now I got, and that's a whole new project. And
Oh yeah.
unless you magically already have them at 50% Superdorf, which you have to make them.
Yep.
I mean, yeah, I mean everything. I don't think people fully appreciate how long of a process this is.
Yeah, because the thing is, like, especially with the SC stuff, I mean, like I said, a lot of people don't last because they think it's gonna be short and easy.
Yeah.
Just that initial 50% SD had whatever new gene.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now you got to raise it up for another 4 years, whatever, make the visuals. But
Yeah.
that's literally just the first step. Then from there, I mean, if people make it that far, great, but a lot of them don't. So that's why people are always like, hey, why don't we have this gene or that gene in the SDs? Because no one has a desire to put forth the effort and time
Yeah.
because all the time and effort is like, it's a lot for someone. And the thing is, you got to figure out what am I going to do with the excess. It's not necessarily like a race to who makes it first, because honestly, for some stuff, I don't care. Rainbow
Oh
snows,
yeah.
because I want to see how they look. If they look horrible, great. I don't need to do it. I can literally wipe that entire portion of my
Yeah.
collection.
Yeah. You can let someone else do it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I'm like,
Sometimes it's easier to sit back.
yeah, because if they make it and it looks amazing, then great. My heading's still good. I have nothing to
Yeah.
worry about.
Mhm.
It's just one of those things where you got to kind of figure it out, and especially with newer recessives and the SC games. Like I always tell people, like, well, I want a project that's cutting edge. I'm like, dude,
Anyone.
pick anything out there because nothing's been done
Yep.
other than albino and Anri. Nothing's been done in SC.
Yep.
Period. It's just one of those things. Are people willing to put that effort of? Basically, I tell people if you're starting from the ground floor, expect about 10 years, give or take.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
and
I got 7 years into my Apocalypto projects. So I got
okay,
7 years
yeah,
into normals. You
yeah,
know what I mean? It's like, yeah, dude, this takes forever. And
yeah,
especially,
that.
yeah, especially if
And
you're
if you
breeding
want to do it,
for looks. Like if you're trying to selectively breed, just tack on an extra couple years.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you can do it the cheap and quick way, but then at the end of the day, the way I look at it is like, why?
Yeah.
Like my marble snows, it took me, I think I was short of 11 or 12 years for that. I
Wow.
could have done it probably 4 or 5 years sooner. It would have been sub 50%, but
Yeah.
I had no desire to because, again, I mean, to me, it's one of those things where it's the attention to detail and pride of ownership. Like
Hmm.
if I'm just banging them out, then I'm just banging them out, but that's not how I do things. So, like all the projects I have planned forward with the rainbow and hypo stuff, legitimately probably 15 to 20 years if I get to it because even I talk to Andrew all the time. He's like, dude, every season it's like you could get rid of your whole entire collection and have a brand new collection of cutting edge projects that literally take a lifetime to do.
Yep. Within
You
a
know?
season or
Well,
two.
and
Yeah.
and that's why it's interesting because it's like, people may be surprised by prices, but it's like the amount of time, focus, investment into producing the best looking or the highest percentage or whatever stuff is so extensive. Like, you know what I mean? And it's interesting that you say that because Yeah, I mean there is strategy to this. Like there is strategy to it, and you're not just going out and you're not just racing to the highest percentage stuff and then selling them
No.
at will. It's like yeah, you'd be crushing your own thing because the other thing is too, you got to think about it. Like who else is really focusing on super dwarf snow stuff like you are? No one. So when it comes to competition, it's like you're kind of your own competition, right? Where it's like you're
Yeah,
trying
you go
to,
for
yeah, you're your own market. Yeah.
Yeah, because the thing is, like right now, the whole SD snow thing, like for what I've seen, especially like on Morph Market, there's no push for a higher percent. It's just adding new genes in, which
No.
is fine. But at the end of the day, like when I hear like people screenshot stuff and send it to me, like, oh look, they're sending saying this is investment quality ammo, 50% SD snow, whatever it is. I'm like, I don't personally don't care about the new gene added to it because like that's like there's so much available where if you took the effort and just did it and make the hets, and it's weird because there's so many 50% visual SD snows, but no one's taking the time to breed it to pure to make the 75% double hets because I just don't see the reasoning. I see the reasoning for this breeders because they're banging it out because at the end of the day right now it's that whole mass production pump and dump like 50% snows at $1,000, 1,500, which I'm like, I have no desire to do that. People are like, aren't you afraid of pricing the market? I'm like, I'm not trying to sound like an egomaniac, but I own the game. Like, why would I sit there and compete and lower my standards or expectations on the animals I produce to compete with someone else making 50%? Like, yeah, cool. You want to sell yours for $1,000? Cool. I was like, when I made that purple marble mountain snow, people are like, are you selling it? I'm like, yes and no. I probably won't unless you make me a crazy, ridiculous offer. And they're like, well, what do you think? I'm like, it's gonna be a lot because I was like, what would you charge someone for about 11, 12 years worth of your time and I think 5 or 6 different breedings into it? Like, it just to me it doesn't make sense to sell it, even though it's a female. I mean, if it was a male, that would have been great for me, but it's a female. I'm like, you know what? First of her kind. Like I have no reason to just dump her. I'm just like, no, I'll just keep her. I'll probably use her for something in the future, but even if I don't, who cares?
Yeah.
It just people just a lot of people getting into it. They see everyone on social media, oh this and that. But like you said, Spencer, it's like the time commitment. I don't think most people can stomach because like it's hard enough for them to kind of think through what they're doing this year or next year when you're like, oh, Eric, you're at this point. I'm like, yeah, but here's the thing. The point I'm at now, I literally planned it out roughly about 2015. Like I've always told people, immediate goals, midterm, and long term. And my long terms were, 10 to 12 years, give or take, and midterm, 5 to 8 because you can't just randomly like every season. I don't know what I'm doing. Like you'll lose sight of big picture and get so distracted and off track where you'll never finish those lofty goals you had because you never stayed the course. Where my snow stuff from day one, I was like, produce entire line of Amory stuff that has no albino. So at any time I can start doing new double head snows of any kind, which I've done. Then the snow stuff just slowly grind it out in stages where, like I said, I'm not trying to make huge jumps. I could, but again, then that kind of defeats the purpose of what I'm trying to do. And my new goal with the SD is not necessarily percentage, even though I'm going to go for a higher one, is start adding the locality influence and doing that because, like, one of my goals, which I know will be probably another 15 plus year goal is if I make my 75% SD snows this year, I want to run those males into a pure Hama and pure Ternate and eventually raise those up to, you know, run to make 50% Ternate Hama snows. But I also want to do them to each other. And at the end of the day, those visuals be 37.5%, Calatoa, 25 Ternate, 25 Hama snow stuff,
Well,
Yeah,
you
and
know?
and
that's what
then
I
you have
was
to run it back to a pure.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
And then you have to
Yeah.
run it back
And
to a
there's
pure.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I was gonna say that. I was like, because I was thinking about for next season potentially making some double head snow stuff. And and there's a lot of different ways you can go, but I was like, what if I robbed Rodney of one of his Apocalypto, males, you know what I mean? And just made some
Yep,
killer, double het snows. And that's the start of a long process then, right? Because then it's like,
exactly.
then you're raising those animals up, but then you want to get Super Dwarf back into or whatever you want to do. It's like, so it goes on
It's a
and
never
on.
ending process. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Talk a little bit, Eric, because this is something that Rodney's brought up multiple times. We've talked about it on the podcast too before, but we see a big absence right now in high percent purples in the market. Like they're just not being produced. People aren't really focusing on them. I think the highest that's available on Morph Market, maybe it's high 50%, maybe. Um, what have you seen just with your inventory over the years with snows, with purple albinos? Like, you know, what are customers typically looking for on that front?
I mean, a lot of it kind of, I think it depends on how fast breeders can move stuff. So I think the reason you don't see a lot of the higher percent stuff is people want quick turnaround, quick turnover in terms of they don't want to sit on a clutch for a year and a half, 2 years to sell, which is understandable. But at the same time, it's just one of those things where people will spend the money on a higher percent animal that's like, oh, look, these are the parents, you know. I think the reason is most people are just trying to cram more genes into it. Where a lot of the SD game, in my opinion, is turning into the mainland of the whole like gene stacking it, and then it washes out, you know, basically what we initially wanted in the first place, and the sizing starts getting weird because all these genes, predominantly mainland blood, come into it. It waters all the down the SD characteristics. But I think going forward, a lot of people, a lot of breeders are realizing, hey, if I just made entire clutches of 75% Calico purples, I'd literally sell out every single one of them every single season because a nice deep dark purple, like is an eye catcher. Whereas other stuff, people might be like, oh, I don't like Motley, I don't like this or Sun or whatever platinum. But a nice purple is a nice purple, and I think most people can, regardless if they like it or not, say that's a cool looking snake, and it would totally sell. But even the higher percent het stuff that's I've made in the past, sent them to Garrett or it's sold in general. A lot of those animals, no idea what happened to them. I hazard a guess. Unfortunately, they probably a lot of them have passed because even talking to John Cashman, like I think I've talked about last time in the podcast, when him and Garrett made those paired jams back in I think February 2020, I think it was 25 some animals total in that clutch. And I think I, besides the pair I got from them, I think I've managed to track down like two or three animals. So it's
Re-
like that wasn't that long ago. Like I said, I think February 2020 is when that clutch was. So that's almost 6 years in a couple months, and all those animals are
oh,
gone. You
that's
know,
nuts. You know,
so I mean, I could hazard a guess and say a lot of the other stuff, same thing where, people got into it during the COVID time, spent a ton of money. Then after that, like the snakes are an afterthought, life changes, job changes, whatever. But I think going forward, a lot of people, the newer people are realizing, you don't need a crazy gene combo. Just a nice snake is a nice snake and they'll sell.
yeah.
Because I've thought about, producing just high percent, albinos in the future and just kind of go that route. My only issue is like I have enough projects and I really can't sacrifice. Oh, let me set aside another 4 or 5 cages and this and that
Mm.
for other animals. Where depending on what projects come to fruition and what I can move out, I might go that route and just in the future kind of bank on 75 or higher, just purples.
Well, I really think the snake, in Super Dorse at least, I think the animals that people are going to be starting to snag up, I think it's going to be the 75% double het stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, like if it's 75% double het albino, anery, albino, anthrax, just pick whatever. As long as one of them's albino, I think that stuff. I think there's enough newer breeders coming into the space that's going to be the stuff they want. They're gonna want, they're gonna want some 75 percenters and stuff. And I'm surprised that double heads have always been kind of a tough sell, which I'm sure you know. They're not, the world's
Yeah.
not exactly beating down your door for them. But the super door situation is a little bit different because it's also a percentage game. So the percentage game is long term anyways. So if you're jumping into something long term, you might as well jump into some double het stuff too. So
Yep.
I really see, because double hets have been a nightmare historically in mainlands, but I think you're going to see people a lot more interested in the double het stuff if it's 75%.
Yeah.
And I'm just amazed people aren't producing it in the numbers that I thought I'd be seeing.
Yeah, because you would think there's plenty of 50% snow stuff out
Yep.
there, but I almost never see anyone say, "Hey, like I'm breeding this snow to appear for any reason."
Yep.
It's always like I'm gonna water it down just to add more genes, but then you're
Yeah.
like, it just makes it that much harder for someone to sell in the future because if 50% is a standard and you start dipping below that, someone's gonna need a super high percent, whatever it is, just to
Mm,
bring it above 50 again, which I think turns a lot of people away when they look at the snow stuff in particular.
yeah, yeah. It'd be so much quicker to, well, easier and quicker to just suck it up and do that
Yep.
pure breeding. You know,
Yeah.
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
50% the pure.
Yeah, because people like the closer that I get to breeding and stuff, it's like you start realizing how much space, time, maintenance, money goes into like even just your holdback stuff. You know what I mean? It starts adding up so quick. And that's once again, people look at their initial snakes and like, this is awesome, and I want to breed and all this stuff. And then it's like, well, what happens after that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, what's phase two? Phase one is raising stuff up. What's your first round of raising stuff up? What does phase two look like? You know, and phase three, right? Um, yeah, no. Rodney, what was one of the other questions that Kevin had? I think he had a good question. I think he brought up a lavender. There was like a lavender question or something. Maybe I'm off on that.
Well, Kevin Mansfield has a couple questions. First one is, what's the highest percentage Super Dwarf purple snow you've produced so far?
Right now, the highest percent is 78.125% Kalatoa, 6 1/4 jam, purple platinum snows, and I have the
Jesus.
87.5% Kalatoa double heads that I have that are proven.
Oh, okay. So you
But
got
then
the
I
double.
have obviously like the one that I made the purple platinum, and in that same clutch, I held back a pair of purple marble head aneries that are
Hmm.
78 12.5. So
So you could start. You could start cranking them out if you want. Probably.
oh yeah,
Um, okay. His Kevin's next question is, what is the best looking Super Dwarf purple snow morph combo you've produced?
um,
I know what one I like the most of yours. It's that weird, crazy back pattern
the
Parthos
purple,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Depending on what you like, I think a really nice one is like purple tigers
Yeah.
because
Mm.
just the yellows from the tigers, and it's so if you don't like tigers, then obviously you probably don't like it. But in terms of just a general really nice high contrast animal
Hmm.
that looks good, just because of how clean tiger cleans up the patterns, it makes the yellows very yellow and really bright.
Hmm.
That's a good one. My purple platinum is really nice because that the whole her sides right now as she's gotten older it has turned more and more white, and the top yellow is like a highlighter yellow.
Hmm.
But I'm still in search of a really dark purple marble snow, which is my goal. Because I made the purple marble motley snow, but that kind of striped it out too much. It's still chaotic on top, but I kind of want the side banding and more of the chaotic, just straight marbly back pattern instead of being striped out with the motley in it.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
That marble gene can be rough.
Yeah,
yeah.
it's super hit or miss.
Yeah.
The
It
purple
can be
tiger
rough.
stuff, you don't see a bunch of purple tigers, do you? I'm trying
You
to
don't
Say
see
that
it.
think.
again.
You don't see a bunch of purple tigers like out there, do you? Like
No.
especially in super dwarfs, right? Am I missing that, or am I on point with that? Like no one's
Yeah.
producing purple tigers consistently, right?
No.
Yeah,
Even
that's
less or
crazy.
super tiger. Hardly see like super tiger
That's
SC
what
anything.
Rodney was that's
Another
what
one,
Rodney was saying. And I pulled this thing out because I was just talking about this girl on my live, but I just realized that she's pos het purple too. So this is I have a female, she's 20 from 2022, so she'll be what, 4 in February. She's 87.5% Kalatoa slash Madu, super dwarf, and then 6.25% Jampea. So she's like 93% super dwarf, whatever. She's a visual anery, and she's 50% het purple. So, you know, if you have this animal, Eric, I think this is a good question. So if you have this animal, what do you do with her?
I'd definitely 100% run something purple to her, even if they're not het anery. Just that way, you make your double hets. But depending on what you're going for, whether like whatever morph you like, but you 100% basically want to figure out if she's het purple because that would dictate what you do with her in the future. Like you not knowing now, like you can do whatever breeding you want just for the immediate here and now, but knowing whether she is or isn't is huge for the future. Like I've done breedings in the past where when I made pos hets, I'll try to prove them out, hoping I get something cool. But my big thing was knowing if that animal is het or not, because in the future, whether I keep them or not, and if I do, I know exactly the direction because now I know for sure they're this or they're that. Instead of not knowing and always like it's weird to me when people do like two pos het breedings, but the genes aren't the same. So now you're pos het,
Yeah.
Just gene stack impossible hets.
and
Yeah,
that
like
adds no value. But apparently, to some people, it adds value. So I don't know.
yeah, my hypo is like a pos het pied from Bob. So yeah. Yeah, it's like okay, I don't know when I'll be able to use that, but we'll see. Um no, I mean, so she was yeah, so the male or her dad was an Anery,
Okay.
75% or 75% Madhu, 25% Kalatoa, and then he was ran to a double het purple Anery from
Okay.
yeah. So yeah, she's solid. I mean, she actually the funny thing is her pattern, like her back half of her pattern almost looks like a tiger. So I need to find a solid male, but I think you're right. Like running running a het purple or something or a purple would be probably the way to go, right? So
Yeah. So you know what she is, and from there, like you said, if you want to do snow stuff in the future, that would be a huge jump for you because like that's a slam dunk if you get the right male with her being 87.5%. It'd be a
yeah,
no brainer.
right, right. No, I mean, I think educating people on that process, and I think that was a good example, but like educating people on like if they're wanting to produce albino stuff or they're wanting to produce snow stuff in the future, like you don't have to go pick up like the most expensive visual snow out there to make that stuff happen, right?
Yeah.
What are the odds on a double head to a double head again for
1 in 16.
1 in 16.
1 in 16? Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah. And so, I mean, you're still able to make some really, really cool animals out of that typically, right? So,
I mean, if
uh,
you were looking to do that the cheapest way, I just get a het female at the highest percent you can, because then you're gonna eat up what 3 years. So in 3 years, you can potentially get a super high percent het albino male or get a visual depending on your budget. Because if you got to do it smart, I always tell people just obviously buy females first, figure out because there's no reason to buy a half-singing male and female at the same time because that male is going to mature twice as fast and he's just taking up real estate and time and money from you. Whereas, say you got a $5,000 budget for your male right now, in 3 years, that same 5 grand, if you don't increase it, I guarantee you'll get higher percentages, potentially more genes or visual for the same 5 grand you'll spend right now in 3 years, and you'll get way more out of it on the back end. You don't need it now, other than if you want just to want it, great. But in terms of financially and the strategy, there's no reason to get a male unless you have girls that are within 18 months, maybe 24 months of breeding, because you'll get way more use out of that male in the future.
yeah,
Plus,
if you're just getting started, like you're just buying females, like there's almost no point to buying a male because it just
nope,
becomes obsolete in two or
yeah,
3 years. Like,
Unless it's a pure.
right, right.
a
Yeah.
pure.
Unless it, yeah, like unless it's a pure. But other than that, it's kind of.
Well, like for example, I bought a pair of Coyotes. That male is just going to be sitting there for 4 or 5
A lot.
years since when I got them. Like I'm not gonna make pure coyotes this year. I might next year shoot for it or maybe the year after. But yeah, it's like one of those things where focus on your females and it, Eric, talk a little bit about kind of your upgrading system because you and I have talked a little bit about this, but essentially the goal is you're making better stuff almost every year, right? And
Yep.
so how do you cycle through and kind of decide what males, what females to keep? But I guess more importantly on the male side, because you should be upgrading your males pretty
All the time.
consistently. Right,
The
right.
biggest thing with breeding that people might not realize when they're not breeding is the fact that Rodney can attest to this. Your males are usually obsolete after that breeding. Besides peers, like
Yeah.
morph wise, like your goal should be like higher percentage this or that, and that male is gonna be obsolete. There's a few instances where like say if that male is something that makes sense to breed to a bunch like more than one season, that's fine. But usually I'd probably say 2 years for any given male, not pure like morph wise, and that male is obsolete. So you always got to figure like when you're doing your breedings like most bang for the buck. And one of the breedings I'm doing this year, if it goes, I mean, realistically, animals probably not going to look the greatest. I'll be honest. And they're probably going to either be brown or yellow bananas, but they're going to be kick-ass brown or yellow bananas that have 8 genes in them.
Hmm.
So why am I doing that? Because it's going to be potentially an Anery hit purple with 6 codons on top of it.
Hmm.
Do I know what they're going to be? No idea. But the reason for it is because then, like I said, I have my Mochinos Pos head Anery stuff, or hopefully Mochino Snows this year. I have my orange glow head Anery now. In the future, as I start running these, male female from that clutch, if it goes this year, could literally replace 90% of my males. And those females, I could literally just run pure SG2 and bang out potentially 6 different codon combinations. And in that instance, for that male, like say it's a multi-gene male, I could probably run him damn near indefinitely and get a bunch of cool stuff all the time. Whether I'm running it to other morphs to make the snow stuff, or even if I just run it to pure localities, because it was potentially 6 codons on top of it. Like you could breed them probably 5 or 6 times and get new combos out of it. So you got to just be really strategic in what's the most beneficial.
Well,
That's
and
my
that's
business now is doing that. We're trying to figure out like, okay, if I do this breeding, I mean, obviously his babies will replace dad, but will those babies replace other males in my collection to kind of streamline it and make it just easier and just nicer where you don't need a one for one. When I got into it, my mentality was always one to one, meaning one male, one female for whatever project plan I was doing. But now I'm like, yeah, I don't want that many males because I don't need them. Like with your chaotic, it's like you're gonna use them eventually, but for now he's just chilling. He's like,
well, if I make
yeah,
cures and I hold back a male, it's like, it's like it's just like I was thinking about that the other day. I was like, why do I really I guess I need him. I guess
yeah.
I need him. And that's even a big reason why I'm doing the multi-combo Kaiwadi pairing this year with Nathan Hess's because I think his is I gotta remember if it's An I don't know if it's Anery Posset Anery that whatever that is, but it's got I don't know 4 or 5 genes in it, right? And so yeah, no, we'll have to. I mean that we've talked about it too in terms of the multi-gene, albino anery stuff that you're doing. That's just crazy. I mean, that's just next level in
You
terms of
just
being
gotta
able to
think
plug
about
that in.
especially for you, Spencer, like this is your first breeding season, you can figure like potentially if you thought about it, it's like you can go from your current collection, what you have 8 right now, right?
Yeah, eight and two on
Yeah.
two on breeder loan. Yeah.
You could potentially double or triple your collection in one season, depending on what holdback you get. So then, like you said, you got to figure out, okay, what am I keeping? And just imagine, say you're 4 or 5 breeding seasons into it, the logistics of it go through the roof, and people are like, well, what do you have? I'm like, you know, I got a lot
Oh
of
man.
goddamn, yeah, it's just you got to be really strategic. Where on the back end now, you start thinking, what breedings can I do to kind of like cut all the extras? Where like I still have this mentality where I have backups for the backups because like back in the day, like the original the 75% Kalatoa, 12.5% Jamp, double hit snow I got from Ben back in like 2014. I got that, bred them. I made a male snow from the first clutch, which is amazing. Out of 9 eggs, I hit the only snow was a male, which sent me on my trajectory. But then me being me, I was like, oh, I don't need them anymore. And
Hmm.
I, of course, I sold them for next to nothing. And like I always, that's my kind of my warning symbol or warning sign for me to always double and triple, check and think everything through. Where do I really not need this male anymore? Because that male, if I would have kept him, I could have, had 2 paths of making the snows besides having the new visual like male snow. I could have used dad and done other things and this and that. Where like even now I have people like, how many males do you have? I'm like, I don't know, too many to even want to talk about. And they're like, most breeders I talk to, they're like, I got, 10, 15 females. I got like 1 male, 2 males. Because I'll buy a male, use it for whatever I need it, but then I move them out. And like, first time breeders, same thing for if you're looking at this from like a business standpoint, like you, Spencer, it's like I know you're attached to your animals you have, your kids are attached to them. Like, how do you like kind of navigate that? Like, hey, this male is great, but in the back of your head, you don't need him anymore. His sons have just replaced him, but now you got to kind of navigate that. What do I do? And do I start doing this on the regular? And the kid's like, hey, dad, where the hell are all the animals? Like, because all the after every season,
Cycle them.
So
Yeah, cycle them through. Yeah.
so it's one of those things where you got to start thinking, even females, like down the road, you might get to the point where, okay, say you have your season now, you have your holdbacks, males, females. 3 or 4 years from now, when the girls you just made are ready to go, do you need the females you have now? That now you have what, probably almost 8 or 9 years into them, or however long, So it's one of those things where you got to be super strategic as best you can, because you know unforeseen things happen, but at the same time, it's like you hedge your bets, but then you got to like really think long term. It's like, we all have talked about it in terms of, this isn't just gene stacking for gene stacking, and you got to be really like thorough in terms of, I'm going for this, whether contrast, colors, whatever you're going for now, size. You just got to be smart in your breedings, because like just saying, oh, it's an SD, whatever, it's not going to sell like it did 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting too, because you even look at pures and everyone's like, okay, pick up a bunch of pure females. But, you know, as people can start focusing more and more on color, pattern, contrast, I mean, even some of the females, pure females that are super dwarfs or whatever, those can be upgraded, right? Like you're going to be able to get Ternate in there, Mindanao, Halma in there. And it's like you could make some really dark, high contrast, inky black animals that are like, they're maybe only 50, 60% super dwarf, but they look way better because they've got the other localities mixed in there now. So then it's like going more to that next level of refinement that we've talked about. And I'd be really interested once you create that animal, Eric, like, 6, 7, 8 gene animal, dipping back into the paint can of
Oh, absolutely.
Turnate or whatever, and just seeing what pops out. Like I would love to see that experiment happen and unfold where it's like, this animal that might look kind of dull or faded out, or you don't even, it doesn't even look like anything crazy, but then you take it back to a Turnate and you get all these crazy looking morphs and mixes. I think would be that experiment I'm looking forward to,
Yeah, I think with
like
the localities now, it's just added a whole new kind of like, facet to the breeding, where for all of us that have been in it long enough to have our projects kind of, ironed out, now it's like you add that new element of adding the new, locality stuff. Like one of the breedings that hopefully will happen this year for me is a pure homo male to one of my high percent, multi-gene anery girls, just to start that and just kind of go, in that route. Same thing where I have a 6 gene anery girl that I'm gonna run a pure homo to, and just kind of, I want, most of the anery stuff out there browns out. We all know that they look great as babies, then they kind of get brown because Kalatoa, Grumpa, Mandu, it doesn't matter, they just brown out. But hopefully, with the homo blood in it in the future, they stay, grays and blacks and that, and more whites for whatever white that can be shown through it. So we'll see.
Now, you're definitely heading more into the locale stuff. Um, Maybe touch a little bit because like people are going to hear that. Oh, well, I just need to breed it into localities. Well, that's not what you're doing. You're specifically using a specific locality for those traits. So I mean, I
Yeah,
think that's something that people, because the super dwarf craze was just a super dwarf craze, and there's no real locality craze. There's just we're trying to utilize them in a way to make our stuff better. So it's not a
yeah,
craze. It's like a tool for
yeah.
refinement. So like if you could maybe explain why you know you're trying to use Halma or this or that to really kind of solve maybe not solve some problems, but enhance some
Just enhance
things.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah, the biggest thing is with the locality is you got to figure out what locality, like,
yeah.
not figure out the locality, you got to figure out what you want to do first, morph wise. Okay, so if you're doing whatever morph it is, you got to kind of research and figure out what locality will either amplify, enhance, or just kind of, bring out more contrast if it has more side banding. Like for the example for that Anri stuff. Like I said, Anri's usually brown out. It doesn't
Mm.
have enough color in it. And like we all have seen pure SDs where like the black ticking on it or black on it in general is very thin, very faint. And the Anri's produced from it are usually the same. And the fact that they brown out with the Halma, obviously the pair I got from you, Rodney, or almost not pure black, but
That
a
one's
pretty,
fucking dark.
he's
That
dark.
Yeah, that one
And
is
even
dark.
his belly scales are almost all completely black.
Yeah.
So my logic and reasoning for using a pure Hama to my Anri stuff is to just infuse those pet Anri babies with a ton of black, way more just thicker blacks, more
Mm-hmm.
solid blacks, where it'll bring out those colors in the future when I run it back.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'll do a the 50% Homa het and raise to themselves, obviously. But in the meantime, raising up those females, I'll do a male of that to one of my Anri girls that are the darkest that I
Mm-hmm.
have to see the influence. It'll be 25% Homa at that point. But at least that'll kind of give me an idea of, okay, this 50% breeding I'll do down the road when those girls are of age, I'm on the right track, or maybe I'm not on the right track, and just kind of play it from there.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing is figuring out whatever gene you want to work with and see what localities, whether, okay, say ternate has more, color spectrum depending on if you're doing albinos, because
Yeah.
I think albino ternate 50% or higher is going to be just ridiculous because the contrast, color palette, everything, The SDs are great for size, but that's basically it because they don't have the color palette, they don't have the blacks on it, which obviously if you're going from something that has a ton of black to albino, now the contrast is just going to be, incredible.
Yeah. I think I really hope somebody makes albino or Indo Halmas because with how dark their side colors are, I think the contrast for the albino version is going to be like something pretty substantial. I think it's going to be a very very nice orange and a lot of it. So I'm
Yeah.
excited to see what people do with those.
That or even Philippines with albino, I think would be amazing.
Yeah,
Philippine
Yeah,
has a ton of.
yeah, yeah. Phils are. I'm surprised Philippines haven't caught on more. To be honest, I mean, I everything you do with them, they look great. I'm really surprised there isn't more demand for them.
yeah,
I think once
the
we see the morphs, I think
Yeah.
people will be like, okay, I need to do it because a lot of people are 100% game for it,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't want to start it. Like you said,
Yeah,
Ronnie,
they don't
they
want
want
to
to
do
sit
it.
they
see
want to
someone do
see
it.
something
Yeah,
first. They want to see proof of
exactly.
concept, and then they're gonna hop
Yeah,
Yeah.
in.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah, and that's where everything's trending. Like that's like you see. I'm trying to think. I think it was who was it? Was it Brian Carlson, Rodney, that picked up something from you, Mindanao Phantom, or was that from
Oh,
somebody
no, it was a
else?
turnate. Well,
Or
no, there was people who picked up Mindanao Phantoms and turnate Phantoms, but
yeah,
I think it
I
was
mean
Brian.
those.
Brian picked up
Yeah,
a really nice
that
turnate.
that one just like I don't know. I've never seen a Phantom like that. Like
Yeah.
it's insane. Like I said, I think it's a Phantom, but no, I mean ultimately, I mean even the stuff that you're producing, Rodney, the wild type stuff. There's something about those localities, Ternate especially, where it's just throwing all kinds of different designs and patterns and everything like that. That's just so unique. And then you throw morphs into it, and it's like playing Twister. Like it throws different stuff that you just never have seen before,
Yeah.
And I think that's the cool part about some of those localities is you really don't know what's going to happen with some of that,
Well, and you
you
can
know,
also bring an old morph back to life with it. You know,
100%.
you
Yeah.
can it's like, oh well, like we'll say Motley. Okay, well Motley's, oh, they just kind of all look like Motleys. Well, not necessarily. You start messing with them, you can make some pretty crazy looking Motleys if you try. And I think I do think the locality aspect of this with the Superdwarf aspect is really, it helps add excitement back in because you're really in a position to make some neat looking stuff, which has a higher value. So it's always nice when you can make something nice and you add value back to it. So
Yeah, when you make nice looking stuff, it's like people are just reaching out to you.
yeah,
You're not even having to. I mean, your Apocalypto stuff, Rodney, I feel like is just like people hit you up as soon as you post stuff on that.
dude, I just lost out on a sale because I'm out of them. I only had
Yeah,
4 for sale.
it's crazy.
2,500 a piece for normals, and I didn't. I was like, they're either going for 25 or they're staying here, and
Yep.
all 4 of them sold at 25. There's very few morphs that are pulling 25 right now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know,
that's crazy.
yeah.
Well, Eric, talk a little bit about this upcoming season. I know you've mentioned some things that you're working on, but talk a little bit about some of the plans you have. I know obviously you've talked a little bit before about potentially moving some of your former stuff out, your adult stuff. Talk a little bit about just some of the moves you're going to be making and expect over the next, 6 months.
Um, I'm hopefully, if everything goes well, I'm going to be doing a lot of breeding this year that are going to, like, those babies will replace parents as in I'm moving the parents out after, just because, like I said, right now, with hopefully I hit Mochino Snows and I have that Orange Glow het and lined up for hopefully next year. And I'm kind of hoping to start my hypo stuff this year. It's just one of those things where I'm gonna probably move out a majority of my breeders because like a big chunk of my collection right now I have is my triple het snow pieds, and hopefully they
Mm.
go this year because that's 9 animals. That's the whole clutch. So, so
Crazy.
hopefully, I mean, the way I look at it, even if I don't hit the visual, as long as I hit a male like purple pied, animal pied, that's
Yeah.
all I really need because of everything else I have. So I'm cool there. But I want to kind of I want to start other projects. Like I have my 50% SD double het Anri rainbows. Right now I'm raising up. I want to hit 50% SD double het Anri hypos. And down the road, my long term goal for that is like I want to make Anri hypo rainbows with a bunch of locality blood. But for me to do that, a triple recessive, like that's gonna take forever, but that's fine. Mm, What else? I'm gonna eventually like I'll go for pure Hamas. I'm gonna go for pure jam this year, just because like I was gonna do other stuff with the hypo, but I'm trying to keep the hypo thing to kind of a minimum. Just do 2 breedings. Hopefully, if it goes, it goes. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But I need to start kind of making way for eventual the rainbow like snow stuff in the future. So I kind of need to. It's not that I'm thinning it out, but I'm making it where everything's kind of more plug and play in the future.
Mm.
Because again, what if I whenever I hit the rainbow stuff in the future, I have the snow backing it. Then hopefully by then, plug it into Mochino snows, orange glow snows, and just make the visuals, and they'll all be het rainbows. So I just kind of figuring out what I want to do, and like the whole aspect of adding locality to it now. Like even with just my different purple, so
Yeah.
like it literally like I went from, oh, I have 20 years, 25 years worth of stuff. Now I got like 40, 50 years worth of stuff. So I just got to figure out what I want to keep. And like I said, with it, if I hit those 75% purple snows this year, in the future, I definitely want to run that to like a pure Hama, pure Ternate, and go that route and try to mix and match those and just see how that. My thing is like making them small is great, but making them prettier is better
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, pretty snakes. Like if I lose 2 or 3 feet, I don't think people care as much as saying, "Hey, this is the smallest, brownest snake you'll find. Give me a lot of money for it." It's like it's a give and take. People want small, but a lot of people also want something where it feels like a retic, if that makes sense. Because honestly, I think even if you could make a retic that legitimately stayed 5 or 6 feet, most people wouldn't want it because they're like, "Oh, that's not enough snake." That's like
Yeah, it's a
back in the
happy
day.
medium. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, that 8
uh,
to 12 foot range seems to
yeah,
be what
Yeah, because my Kaiwadi female, she's probably pushing 9.5, 10 feet. And she fits on one arm. You know what I mean? She'll wrap up
keep that
my
in.
hand. Yeah, it's like, and she's impressive enough where people are kind of like in shock because I'll hold her up, and she'll like drop to the floor or whatever. Um, but she's not so big that it's like so
Yeah.
intimidating for me, and it's not such a pain to clean and to deal with her like on a regular basis. So it's like finding that happy medium. And one thing that I've kind of thought about a lot is like if I was coming in today, right, as like a brand new potential breeder, keeper, whatever, it's like what would I want to buy? And it's completely different than what I actually bought, you know, 3, 4 years ago. You know what I mean? So I'd probably be starting off with the heavy hitters, the Halma stuff, Turn 8, whatever. And then I'd maybe get one or two like pure females as well. But I would look at some of the wackiest stuff Rodney has. I would try to steal his holdbacks. I'd try to do a couple different things there, to really just get some wacky stuff because I remember Rodney when I forgot what clutch it was. I think it was the Mindanao Tiger some
Sun
sun
Tigers. Yeah.
sun tiger stuff. When I saw those, I was like, I haven't seen a retic like that. Pattern, color, like I hadn't ever seen a retic like that. I was like, I know it's not going to stay as small as my other stuff, but that is like one of the craziest looking retics I've seen, produced.
I'm thinking Mindanao's going to go well with pecan, so I'm going to try that project.
Yeah.
I think those might complement each other in a way. Eric, I'm curious of what do you think the potentials are for the hypo? Because I've yet to, I've not somehow I've not seen one in person, and I'm always trying to figure out what genes are and how they work. Um, and in my opinion, maybe I'm wrong. I don't think it's technically a hypo gene. I think it's a pattern mutation that affects color, kind of like Jag, because Jag definitely has an effect on color. But what are you seeing there in your mail that you're like, okay, maybe I can do this with it. Maybe I can manipulate that morph or use it manipulates another morph. Like what are you thinking there? Because I've been
I
trying
think
to wrap my head around it, and I haven't been able to come up with a solid plan.
I think the biggest thing, like you said, I think a lot of it is more of a color, like kind of enhancement more than
Yeah.
anything. Because when they're fired up, compared to when they're fired down, it's
Yeah.
night and day. Because mine is it doesn't have platinum or tiger in it, and it's just
Mm-hmm.
straight. Like when you fire down, it's black. It looks amazing.
Yeah.
I honestly like it probably more when he's fired down, looking super black. Like I posted a picture the other day on IG.
Saw that.
Yeah, I saw that. I was like, man, that looks. I like that look. I like because
Yeah,
I like dark shit. So
yeah. So my goal, like with him, is like I want to run into the Hama.
yeah.
So if that Hama girl goes this year, like of the two breedings I have, just that'll be one of them. Just because I want to see like in terms of if it really affects it, because when they're fired up, that black is more kind of like almost that gunmetal, kind of like blue from like
Mm-hmm.
a genetic stripe.
Yeah.
Same thing when the GS fires up, it's that gunmetal blue, but when
Yeah.
they're dark. So I think it's more of a color thing that we can play with because from the pictures I've seen of the hypo stuff that have been posted online, I'm just like, yeah, I just kind of, I mean, I understand a lot of it. Like they've posted pictures of them younger, so like even when I got my mail, I got it from Michael Powell, and when I first got it, I was like, I called Mike up, like, hey, Mike. Like, you're 100% sure this is a hypo, right? Because it doesn't look like anything. He's like, no, no, no. It's like 100%. Just you gotta give it about 6 months, and that color change and night and day. I'm like, okay, and yeah, about 6 months ish, the color, change. You're like, okay, yeah, it's 100% a hypo. But initially, it legit looks like a normal.
Hmm.
I know a lot of the hypo stuff tends to stripe out and stuff,
Yeah.
but other than like
Yeah,
if you
with
didn't, you know,
yeah,
if you
with
didn't
with
think
mine,
well,
it's like with yeah, most of the hypo stuff has platinum in it. So like that's the one, so they come out really yellow, and there's like very little blue on the actual animal. Yeah, I mean, I'd be curious because I haven't seen just a normal in person either. I've just seen platinum tiger stuff. Um, but I have to agree. I think going the Halma route with hypo is the way to go. And I'm very interested to kind of see, have you noticed head size difference on your hypo at all? Like, I don't know if it's what is it, the Sumatran blood or whatever locality that it's come from, but my hypo male definitely has kind of a different, smaller head in comparison
yeah, it's like
to,
pretty kind of narrow and long.
It's
yeah,
the
yeah,
It's
yeah.
the Malaysian blood.
Or is
That's what yeah, Malaysian head structure.
Yeah, that's one thing I've noticed. But yeah, I mean, my male is awesome. Like people love my male. They think he looks great. I think he looks like a platinum, like that he's just like a banana platinum, like a nice looking platinum. But I am curious because what I'm planning on doing is taking him to my super silver Daniel Soley's female and just kind of
Okay.
seeing what kind of effect that has. But then working towards the SD side. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think there's some cool things that can be done with hypo. I just think it hasn't been played with enough, you
I
know?
think hypo is one of those genes, like less is more, like
Yeah.
more of a locality influence, and like that maybe one or two genes. But I think once you can start gene stacking it, I don't think it's gonna look good,
What?
or it'll look so like kind of minute that you don't really notice it.
Yeah. What about hypo and mocha?
Mm.
I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, because
That'd be pretty cool too.
I've been on this mocha kick lately,
I've
and
always loved mocha, and like I've been trying to chase Moschino snows at this point longer than Garrett because Garrett sent his stuff to I think Nate to make those
mhm,
back in the day, but like that's been probably close to 10 years now. But hopefully Mochino snows this year. Then, like I said, hopefully 2.5 years or so, I can see some Mocha snows and start teasing that out, and that will go 100% will go into locality stuff for that reason.
yeah, yeah, I'd really like to put the yellowhead gene on the mocha because the yellowhead
That'd
gene
be
usually
cool.
comes with like some other lighter colors. And do you see that dude? He's overseas. I think he's in Netherlands or somewhere. He's got that amazing mocha. He just posted a video of it the
Oh,
other day, and I'm
I
looking
saw
at
that.
that. I'm looking at that. I'm like, man, that's like almost perfect. I was like, but I could make that a little better. I threw a yellowhead gene on that. Maybe even like mocha platinum would probably look pretty nice. So
yeah.
I think people are sleeping on mocha. I mean, I never buy snakes or get new snakes. I use almost all my shits I produce, and I actually went out and got a mocha. So
Yep.
yeah, so it's
Well, that's
got
one
some
thing you and Garrett do have in common because
yeah.
Garrett
Yeah.
loves mocha. So,
I was never a big mocha fan because I know it's super limited. It's not like
mhm.
Indo it's not like Indo or purple where you can just it's like those two genes are kind of universal. Like, it's like they're gonna pretty much make everything better. Whereas mocha is super limited.
Right.
I have a mocha. What the hell is it? I think it's a mocha Motley GC. That's not a good combo. So I have to breed.
Rough on the eyes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have to breed two genes out. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I have to literally do a breeding to get rid of stuff. So, but I mean, I think with the right stuff, man. Like, and I honestly think looking at the hypos, I think there's a huge potential there for the hypo mochas. But I mean, is anybody gonna want to do that? you know?
Proof of concept. As long
Yeah,
as someone does it, someone else will pay, but they ain't doing. They're not starting that.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it looks a certain way in my head, and
Yeah.
but yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, like
That's
even
the
like
that's the theme of the podcast, I feel like.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, the one mocha I always used to look at is Sal's original.
The Souse,
That one.
yeah.
Nothing like even he said he's like I've never made anything like we didn't know if there's something else in there because all the babies that thing ever produced nothing looked like dad.
Well, that's
You know.
because the reason those snakes look that way is because I believe that mocha was out of Malaysia. It might have been Sumatra, but the reason that has that look is because of the limited pattern outlining. So you're getting a really high silver look.
Yeah.
So I mean, the best thing to do would have been to hold back one of those original babies, breed it back, and do some line breeding. But you could easily recreate that with a Karampa, a high silver Karampa. You could create that all day. It'd be super easy to do. So I mean, yeah, I mean it's just once again that's all. Who's going to go out and get a? First, you have to find a normal mocha, which are almost non-existent, and then you got
That's
to get
good. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and then you got to go get yourself a breeder Karampa. So it's not like it's not a real easy plan. But no, I mean,
Yeah, and then
retics. A lot of people think retics are one crashing and two oversaturated. That's a true statement, but it's only the stuff that doesn't need produced anymore that's happening to. There's so many options. There's so many routes to go to make nice looking stuff, and hopefully the new breeders are picking up on that and keep pushing it forward because in my opinion, I mean there's easily 30, 40 years worth of work to do. Easy.
Absolutely.
well, I mean, think about it, guys. Like, honestly, like, can you take on two hands, can you count or name 10 locality or Superdorf breeders right now that are ultra focused in really any kind of niche within any kind of genes or polygenics or anything? Like, I know I really can't.
Not if
That's
you
active.
no.
Like, there, I mean, there's people that have aspirations to doing things, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like talk about it, like myself, but like people that are actually producing stuff on a consistent basis that are showing up, there's not that many. And actually, I think that am I back?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're back. You just cut
Oh,
out for a second.
okay. Yeah. So, I mean, like I said, I think the amount of people actually producing has come down quite a bit. So, when people are worried about, oh, this competition or this project, or I don't want to focus on this because Eric's doing albino stuff or snow stuff, it's like, there's so many different ways to go about it,
So
you
wide
know?
open,
Yeah.
especially
Yeah.
this day. No.
Yeah. Yeah. What are you thinking's I always I every year I don't know if anybody pays attention to it, but I always put out my predictions for the next season. Um, since we got a podcast, we'll probably do it on the podcast now. What are kind of your predictions for what we're going to see this season from
in
the
terms of.
market, from the just in general, the market, prices, production? What are you thinking we're going to see?
I think right now, market wise, I think we're good for the most part, depending
Yeah,
on what the particular mores. I think pricing on a lot of stuff, like 50% snow stuff, is 100% going to drop even more than what it is now. Because
yeah,
you go on the market, I think I've seen them at $1,000, this and that, and it's just like some of those ads, like they keep on saying, like they don't put the actual percent on the label ad on Morph Market. They're like, oh, high percent. Then I click on it, just shits and giggles. Oh, 59 or 55. I'm like, huh, we're going backwards in time where the lower percents are the high percents now. But
yeah,
I think a lot of the push will be to get more legitimate high percent stuff. And people are kind of realizing, even besides the locality, is just kind of going back to like about COVID times in terms of looking at percentages and focusing on, making higher percent stuff instead of just cranking out a bunch of 50 percenters because I'm sure with the newer people, they're probably on Morph Market a lot, and like they have eyes. They see the pricing on 50% stuff. Like I'm sure they're smart enough to be like, I don't want to make any of that because if I'm raising the 50% like animal that I paid, whatever I paid for it now, in 3 or 4 years, like what is that animal going to be? I'm selling for what 2, 3, 4, $500? Like, is it worth rate? So I think a lot of people are going to start kind of at this season, depending on whatever produce, will start kind of strategizing like this is what I should be doing because this is how I'm gonna carve out my little like corner of the market and be relevant and stay relevant without having to like do 5, 6 different projects because realistically for most people 2 or 3 projects is more than enough animals. It's
yeah,
like a side hobby is great, but unless they want a full-time job doing this with a ton of animals, no one wants that. So I think in general, the newer keepers are really keen on being super strategic and being kind of very thorough in terms of their research on what kind of market or they want to get into and how are they going to get into it without spending a fortune and realizing, oh look, I got to raise this female up for 4 or 5 years. Is that market going to be stable in 4 or 5 years? Where you look at certain projects that were high a year ago that aren't high now, you're like, oh wow, so anything codom, it's like pay to play, but if you're not banging out a ton of animals, you got to be very selective. And you know, money goes a long way right now because I think people are smart enough where, say, you have a $5,000 budget, you can go to different breeders depending on what they have, and they'll work with you and kind of find a niche that is stable. Which the
yeah,
SD thing right now, everything's kind of wide open, but at the same time, if they're not going to be the one doing the proof of concept, want to get into something stable. I think, like we've said in this podcast, percent albinos, even
yeah,
buying a 100% het is a smart move on par with buying a pure female. Because 4 years from now, if you have a 75% het purple girl, like you can do
You're
all kinds
protected.
of things. You're protected. It's almost like putting money in a CD. You're gonna
yeah,
get your money's worth. Same thing with a pure female of whatever locality. Like you're not gonna lose on it. Whereas a male, he might be relevant this season, next season, then he's obsolete. Then what do you do? You know?
Well, and one interesting thing, and I've said this before, but you're almost better off waiting till you have the proper funds instead of coming in
Yeah.
cheap,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
Like you're better off waiting 2 years to put to save up the cash and to get kind of what you really want. I'm right on par with you, Eric. I think you hit the nail on the head. Where obviously pures are going to keep their value in your projects, future projects, but as well as like you can't go wrong going at the top of the percentage board, right? And looking at what's available or what can you get, and and purchasing there and going after the percent piece too. So yeah, I'm 100% with you. Like if you're going for just trying to get in and because you love these animals, which is great, you have passion for them, but you're also looking to breed down the line, like don't come in with the cheapest option. Don't be satisfied just with the 50% unless it's a super specialty project that's just getting started, right? So I think just being smart and thinking ahead and knowing that it takes time to do these projects, pursue these projects, and see them through. And to your point too, Eric, it's like stuff happens. Animals die, animals get sick. Like life stuff happens, and so you really have to kind of prepare yourself to be like, okay, like kind of no matter what, I'm gonna see this project through because I personally love this project and I'm passionate for it, right? Um, yeah, you're so much better off because I use the example like technically I could have bought my animals a year and a half, 2 years earlier. But I just knew from the beginning that I wanted to have a very like strategic plan for not just the animals and projects, but for the enclosures I was building, all these different things. And I knew that I didn't have the right setup yet. I didn't own my own house yet. I wanted that space. I wanted to be able to do the things the right way. So as as agonizing as it was to wait, it was like I waited and then I pounced and kind of made everything happen. So I think that's really good advice for like any new breeder, like especially if you're wanting to do this long term. It's like, you know, focus on the proper ingredients, is kind of how to see that. And if you're passionate about a certain animal, you can buy an animal as a pet and enjoy that animal like a visual. But if you're also purchasing the ingredients, so to speak, producing that animal yourself, I think is really satisfying, fulfilling too. So like, there's a couple different ways to look at that, right?
Definitely.
Oh yeah, yeah, 100%. But I think I do think we're going to see. I don't want to say even more of a split in the retic community between mainlands and super dwarfs, but dude, I think this is going to be the year that it thins out. I mean, with what I'm seeing online and what I'm seeing on prices, yeah, I don't know if you saw it, but Bob just marked all his retics at 50% off today.
Does that cover shipping at this point, or
I don't know. Well, I just think it's funny. Like out of nowhere, like I started getting mainland stuff because I'm like, oh, I can start a project with that. Oh, like Andrew just picked up a titanium for like, it's like a triple visual or something, $200.
yeah, it's
And
wild.
yeah, I was like, yeah, no, we can play with titanium. There's lots of things I can do with titanium. I like titanium. It's just Jay ruined it all those years ago, so no one ever touched it after that. So man, I just think we're going to see. I think this will be the year we see some people get thinned out. I think those prices. I think the mainland stuff is going to hit so low that it's just not, going to be able to maintain itself. But at least there's going to be some good deals to be had for people that want to
Pick up,
start a new
pick up,
project.
pick up a crazy mainland
Yeah, 4 gene, five
retic.
gene male.
Yeah,
Yep.
go
you know,
nuts. Take it to it, run
get
it
it.
to a pure, like
Yep.
like get it.
Yeah,
I mean,
get
do some
four
stuff.
or five projects right out the gate.
Yeah,
Well,
You
and
know.
you gotta think too. Imagine if they got a high percent male,
Yeah.
or a high gene male like mainland,
Yeah.
and did it from the get go to like a Homa or Trinity.
Yep.
Like you're already so far ahead of the curve in terms of like
Yep.
whatever purple whatever, and you run it to a Trinity, a
Yep.
Homa or a
it's a
Philippine. I
quick
mean,
way,
like
man.
that's a
That's a
quick way to get right into
quick.
it and be relevant. You know.
Yep. Yep. And make really nice stuff. And then, because, and then if you got super dwarfs on the other end, now you already bred half the mainland blood out.
Yep.
So, if it's codoms, this season coming up, I have, I'm going to be working towards 87.5% ternate stuff for platies, tigers, that platy tigers. So, um, and I like a lot of people see me doing that. So I'm like, well, there's tons of platies and tigers and platy tigers out there. Well, there aren't any 87.5% best looking version you've ever seen in your life. 80, tigers out there. So,
And those sold
I
and those sold well for you, right, Rodney? Like,
all those, I don't want to say who I sold it to. I just sold a marble for $2,500.
Yeah, that's good for a
Like
marble.
a marble. You know
a
why?
marble. Yeah.
Because it's like one of the best looking marbles you've ever seen, and it's an 87.5% outcrossed animal. That has value. If it's high percentage and looks awesome, that takes that price tag, you know, and they're not, and people aren't upset. Like, people will pay for value. They will 100% pay for value. And yeah, I think that's something that a lot of the new people need to take into consideration. If they're adding the value with the percentage and the aesthetics, they're gonna get it,
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah,
hundred
because you
percent.
got to figure too, like this season, like a lot of people are looking at not just the highest percent this or that is like they want a lot of like that $500 to $1,000 range and like
Yep.
pet be just nice looking animals where they have no desire to breed and like for the most part, like we all know, like we all usually go for super high this or that, and we're trying to do cutting edge. But a majority of that probably customer base are people
Yeah.
that, hey, it's my first snake, it's my first retic or whatever, they want a cool looking animal. But a cool looking animal at that $500 to $1,000 price point is manageable for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people, like newer people, are realizing like, yeah, I can go for this crazy high percent stuff, but it's also good to have something a mix because producing a clutch of like $5,000 plus animals, nothing lower. You might sell it, but it might be a couple years. Whereas
Yeah.
you have that range of, hey, I have a five, six, $700 animals I can sell that are single codom this or that. Like it'll move, and
Well,
more people are realizing that too.
well, yeah, and when it comes to those higher ticket items, Nathan Hess put an Aztec up today on auction. Um, anybody? There's 9 bids. Anyone want to take a guess what it's at?
1500.
What do you want to go, Eric?
Um, Say 1800.
Nailed it. 1800.
Whoa.
Just
50% coyote.
So I had somebody willing to pay 700 more for a marble than the current bid on a new gene. Yeah, it's that's why aesthetic value
Yeah,
matters
aesthetic value. I
so
mean,
much.
that's what people need to take into consideration as well. Like,
And that's not a dig. That's not a dig at Nathan. That's not a dig on
no, no,
no,
no.
not nothing like that. I'm just saying that, like, that people pay for how stuff looks. So yeah, there's a lot to be said about aesthetics.
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. And no, Eric, we're excited for you, man. And you've been just such a positive influence. This has been a great episode talking with you. You want to
great.
plug you want to plug your handles, or where can
Yeah,
people
I'm
find
on
you?
Instagram under SC Snow King, and I'm on Facebook's groups under my name Eric Lee. So, and yeah, I'm usually pretty active and get back to people pretty consistently, or all the time actually. But yeah,
Are you on Morse Market or no? Or is it mostly
I
DMs?
am, but I got the account more for shipping and for
Yeah, how about it?
posting.
Well,
So but
yeah, our last podcast.
we'll see what King Snake if they do shipping. So should be
Yeah.
interesting.
Well, I tell you what, they are. We just found out today. They told me and Spencer they're giving us our own little retic section in their
Nice.
forums for next gen. So if you want to
Okay,
be a
good.
contributing member,
Yeah,
go in there. 100% like to have you in there helping
yeah.
out.
That's how I remember the old school retic forums. I was on
Bringing
there
it
all the
back.
time.
Yep.
Yep.
No, it was a pleasure having you, Eric. Thanks so much. And
Yeah.
guys,
Likewise, man.
yeah, we'll see you guys next week.